All right, we are live with another COFOH Live and Undead, and I am heavily caffeinated. Yeah! I am your host, Daniel Crosier. This is COFOH Live and Undead, and I am here with the amazing Brinke Stevens. Oh my God! But first,
you write something on my face.
Brinke, how are you?
I'm great, Daniel. Hi. Hi, everybody.
Oh, it's so lovely to have you. Thank you for coming on to the show. Oh man, uh, so as some of you might know, COFOH is Colorado Festival of Horror, and Brinke Stevens here was going to be our first guest. Oh man, but unfortunately, as with many things this year, COVID had us postponed till next year. But we're so fortunate to have you on the show today. Thank you.
My pleasure. I'm so happy to be here. I look forward to being in Denver next September and seeing you guys.
Yeah. Oh, it'll be fantastic. We'll have a lot of fun. But Brinke, tell us a little bit about yourself. You know, how you got into film, and what made you go into that direction.
Well, I can capsulize a long story and make it short. I wanted to be a marine biologist. I got kicked out of graduate school for illegal research with dolphins. I married my childhood sweetheart, Dave Stevens, the artist. I moved to Los Angeles and accidentally became an actress when I walked by the wrong door and they put me in a movie the next day. I never aspired to be an actress. It was a total accident. I always say my career chose me. I didn't choose it.
Oh my gosh, that's absolutely amazing. There's so many amazing left turns.
Yes. I should be in a lab in Hawaii right now doing communication experiments with dolphins. But instead I'm running and screaming and being chased with guys with machetes and power drills and running in high heels.
Let's hope those are not cordless power drills.
Yeah, exactly.
As long as you can outrun that cord, you'll be all right.
Yeah. Somehow I just became a scream queen. And I think that was my destiny. You know, it's like life happens when you're making other plans.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been fun. And I'm so fortunate and blessed that I can do what I love doing. It wasn't what I set out to do originally, but I love the film industry. And I've gotten involved in it in many ways. Since being an actor, I've been a writer, a director, a producer. I do audiobooks. I do a lot of voiceover work. So I'm firmly entrenched in the film industry. And that's where I want to be. I just love it.
Oh, that's fantastic. You've got your fingers in so many different pies.
Yeah, you kind of have to, because in the low budget industry, you know, nothing is certain and you don't make a great deal of money. And there's really no retirement plan. Like I can't afford to retire because it's low budget for a reason. And just have to do so many things. I got into merchandising. I did my own trading cards, T-shirts. I did my own comic book, Brink of Eternity and Brink of Destruction. You know, if there was anything I could do, I did it, trying to make money. I did posters and stuff like that.
Nice. Wow. That sounds so cool. You're incredibly versatile.
Thank you. And what was fun was I could do it all myself. You know, I could be in charge of my own career, and I ran it like a business. I put out a fan club newsletter that I mailed to 5,000 people. And I attended conventions and sold my own merchandise. I really believe I was the first celebrity to ever show up at a convention selling my own merchandise. Before that, you would either just bring it yourself or you buy it from a dealer. But as far as I know, I was the first person to sell my own stuff at my own table.
Man, that's amazing. I have to go back a little bit. You know, you started out, you know, going to school to become a marine biologist,
right?
And you mentioned some illegal research. Is that right?
Yes. I started out in high school. I wanted to be an astronaut. More specifically, I wanted to be a woman who was on a starship and I landed on a planet and there were alien life forms. And I'd say, oh, you know, we'd communicate. But the space program wasn't keeping up with my ambitions. So I figured out that the ocean was kind of an alien frontier and the animals and stuff in it. So I decided to go into dolphin research and work on communication with dolphins. And I got into Scripps Institute of Oceanography because I had a 4.0 grade average. I had double majored in biology and psychology, specifically to go into animal behavior. And when I got into Scripps, I was the only marine biology student that they had accepted that year. And they said, what do you want to do for your doctorate? And I said, well, I want to talk to dolphins. And they're look of shock and horror. They're like, no, absolutely not. San Diego, where I lived, was the hub of the tuna fishing industry, and they were killing 1,000 dolphins a day in their tuna nets. It was also home to the Navy, which was strapping bombs on dolphins' backs and blowing them up along with enemy submarines. So they did not want to talk to dolphins because you'd have to feel terribly guilty about slaughtering them. And so I went into seals. I was researching vision in seals and doing my doctorate on that. Meanwhile, I was also working at SeaWorld, compiling a research laboratory. And 2 baby dolphins were born at SeaWorld, and they moved them into the back where I worked and put them in a tank. And so every day that I was there, I would observe the baby dolphins. And I wasn't really doing anything other than observing them. But somebody ratted me out, and they called me on the carpet at Scripps and said, you can't stay here any longer. And I said, excuse me, what? Right. And they said, it would have been safer if you'd stuck with guppies. And they kind of kicked me out of school with a master's degree. And I was not allowed to finish my PhD. So yeah, it was another 13 years before anybody started going back to dolphin communication research. It was kind of a forbidden topic. So,
wow, it sounds like you were on the cusp of pioneering some new way of communicating with other species.
Well, and I figured it out way back then. This was the mid to late 70s, where John Lilly was doing a lot of research with dolphins, but he was trying to teach them to speak English through their blowholes, like, oh, fish, and I figured out that they have this sonar, and that was how they communicated. They would send pictures in sonar. It's almost like telepathy. And it took another, like I said, 13 years before somebody else finally figured this out. And then after I got kicked out of school, I went to work for National Marine Fisheries. And I was one of the first groups that worked on the ozone layer problem. It was around 78, I think. And they gave 8 institutions grant money to study the hole in the ozone layer. And fisheries, it was what would happen if there was increased radiation, how would it affect the ocean? Well, we found out that larval fish and fish eggs are right on the surface. They float on the surface of the water. So increased radiation would kill fish in huge amounts, so there would be famine. So we took this information and tried to do something with it. And all the big chemical companies like DuPont and Dow, which were causing the hole in the ozone layer, we're like,
Yep.
oh, pat on the head. Well, we care about the environment, but we're
Yeah.
not going to go flying off the handle.
All that pandering stuff.
Yeah. They wouldn't do anything. And, I think since then the problem has kind of solved itself. But I was learning early on about corporate greed and environmental ruthlessness.
Yeah. Yeah, we're kind of experiencing a little bit of that with rules and regulations of the EPA being set back and set aside and stuff, and not being enforced. Oh,
right.
man.
Yeah. Nobody could face up to it. And then after fisheries, I went to work as an environmental consultant for a nuclear power plant, San Onofre in California. And we were hired by the Coastal Commission to see if the power plant was harming the environment in terms of fish.
Yeah.
So every week I was out at sea for 3 days a week. I worked the hydraulic winch that would raise and lower the nets. We'd do net shows and then take everything back that we'd caught to the lab and study it. And we found that there were certain changes in fish populations. And we told the Coastal Commission, and San Onofre promptly fired us. It was a 5-year plan, and they fired us after 3 years because they didn't want to know. They didn't want to hear about this. So, constantly, this was 3 times now, I had to quit science because nobody wanted the truth that we were here to find out. So I ended up marrying my college sweetheart, Dave Stevens, when he proposed to me. I gave up science and I moved to Los Angeles and became Mrs. Stevens.
But you didn't slow down. You were a model, and you modeled for him, and specifically for Rocketeer artwork, right?
Yes. I met Dave probably in '72, I think. I was a teenager, and I was part of a fan group called Star San Diego. And Star Trek and that whole thing.
Right.
So one of the members, Richard Butner, who would go on to run San Diego Comic-Con, invited me. In '72, there was a comic book club at San Diego State University. So I went with Richard to the first meeting. And when I walked in the door, the first person I saw was Dave Stevens. And I'm like, ooh, he's cute. And I ended up marrying him a few years later. But I started modeling for him in the late '70s. And at the time he was doing a comic book called Aurora. I posed for all of that. And then I was Betty in The Rocketeer. And eventually in the early '80s, we did get a divorce. And, it was like we were the best of friends. We continued to date even after our divorce. We just couldn't live together.
Right.
The big problem, I'll say, was that Dave wanted me to be his wife. He didn't want me to have a career. He especially didn't want me to be an actress. He felt very threatened by that. So he was not happy at all that I was pursuing a career. And, but I continued to model for him throughout the '80s. And many of the comic stuff that's out there is my body, but someone else's face.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, you seem like you definitely you've got your own course to kind of cut that path. So you certainly do not seem like anybody that's going to slow down to just be somebody else's wife. You're too passionate and too talented.
Exactly. Yeah, it was like there could be one star in the family, and that was Dave. So, but I enjoyed modeling with him, and I had started modeling in San Diego, and the Comic Cons in the '70s. I won the Comic Con Masquerade in 1973. It was the very first masquerade they ever had, and I won first place in it as Vampirella. I was 19 years old, and they promptly put me in charge of running the masquerade for the next 10 years.
Cool.
So there was a point in the masquerade where there would be a lull for 10 minutes when the judges got together and decided on the winners. So I was teaching dance classes in La Jolla near San Diego. And I enlisted some of my students to put on little dance routines. And it became famous. I did it every year. And I did one to Ballroom Blitz by Sweet, Moving in Stereo by The Cars, Bourrée by Jethro Tull, Funeral for a Friend, Elton John, Killer Queen by Queen. And we had the costumes. In Funeral for a Friend, I had a coffin built, and I had these 6 beautiful girls as pallbearers carry me out in a coffin. And then this dance routine ensued. In Ballroom Blitz, I had 14 dancers on stage, including a 3-piece band. It was very elaborate stuff. So I was kind of getting involved in entertainment, even though I was a scientist and I wanted to do that. I was definitely, making little inroads in entertainment. And I did some photo modeling in San Diego, so it was natural to model for Dave. And all through, for many years, I was sort of a artist's muse as a photo, as a model. And I worked with Boris Vallejo and Julie Bell, Clyde Caldwell, a number of artists. And I also shot with a lot of wonderful photographers like Jeff Dunas and Ken Marcus, Peter B. Kaplan in New York. That was an interesting shoot. Kaplan was doing a book called High Nudes. And this was in the 80s. I happened to be in New York with Ken Marcus for a photo show. And it was December. It was like 20 degrees outside. And Peter somehow talked me into posing stark naked on the 34th floor of a building in Times Square. Wow. And so I'm standing naked on a ledge in 20-degree weather. There's no tether or anything. There's no safety. And the ledge is only like 9 inches wide. It's about as my foot. And Peter took photos of me up there. And later I thought, man, that is the stupidest thing I have ever done in my life.
Wow, that's intense.
Peter Kaplan called me a few years later and he said, hey, can I shoot you on the top of the Transamerica Tower in San Francisco? And I'm like, I don't think so, Peter, but thanks.
Oh, man, that's intense. Hey, Brink, we've got some people commenting. Angela Joseph says hello. And let's see here. God, you have a lot of fans popping in here. I love it. So Seamus just said, I just watched one of your movies.
Ooh, I wonder which one.
Yeah, I know. Be more specific, guy. Anthony Brink, you're the best. Let's see here. James, thank you for all your creative work you have provided. Leonard here is saying, come to New Zealand.
Oh, Leonard, I wish I could. I hear New Zealand is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. Oh, and then Brent from our camp, he was asking about the early days of San Diego Comic-Con, which you touched on.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. If you haven't watched any of her films, you are missing out. So that's to everybody. Scripps owes you an honorary doctorate.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. Anthony here. What's your favorite song in 2020? Interesting question.
Yeah, I don't know, Anthony. I'm not real familiar with songs these days, but I like the old stuff. The 80s and the 60s had such amazing, wonderful music.
Yeah. I was just listening to Public Image LTD, before I set up in here. So yeah, the 80s are definitely one of the strongest periods for music.
Yeah.
And then Dave here he's watching from Ireland.
Oh, thank you, David.
Sweet. And then Phil's saying, always great to see you.
Thank you, Philip.
Man, so yeah, you've got an amazing group of fans. Do you find, your fan base? I mean, they're mostly going to be, horror fans and stuff. Mm-hmm. They whenever I go to shows and participate in shows, that seems to be like that group of that fan base that is just the most passionate and into whatever you're doing. Yeah. Do you find that they're incredibly supportive of you and your work?
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And horror fans are the best. And
Yeah.
you don't get that kind of turnout for romantic comedies,
Right.
stuff like that. It's like a tribe. And I just have such a great time. The people are intelligent, they're passionate, they know so much about everything. Like I love going to Cinema Wasteland, for example, because
Okay.
the fans can talk about anything. And I was a guest there a couple of years ago with a Slumber Party Massacre reunion. And just about every person who came to the table had a story about how old they were and the circumstances when they first saw Slumber Party Massacre.
Wow.
Like I was 9 years old and my babysitter let me watch it. Or I was 13 and my older brother rented the DVD or the VHS.
Yeah.
So it's just a great group of people. I'm very fortunate and blessed.
Nice. Yeah. I think it was when I was a teenager, I watched Slumber Party Massacre for the first time. And then, just a few weeks ago, I think I watched it streaming. I can't remember if it was Amazon, probably was. But yeah, that was like the sixth or seventh time I've seen that film.
Yeah, that was the first major movie I did. I had only done a short film, a USD film, and I was an extra in a few things. But Summer Party was my big role, and that was around 1981 that we shot it. I think it came out in '82, and I didn't know if I could act or not, but I had walked by a casting office with some of my modeling photos from San Diego from the 70s. And they put me in a movie the next day, which was as an extra in All the Marbles. And I thought, well, this is, it's $40 a day in lunch. I'll just keep doing this until I can find a science job in Los Angeles, not realizing that there is no science in Los Angeles. So I was taking my portfolio of modeling pictures to an appointment for an advertising agency, and they forgot that they had made the appointment with me, and they went home early. So when I got there at like 4:30, the secretary is like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, they forgot, they went home already." So I'm trudging all dejected with my portfolio down the hallway, and there's an open door there, and I happen to glance in, and I see that there's all these movie posters on the wall. So I slow down a little bit and I'm looking at all the posters, and I don't realize there's a guy sitting behind a desk looking at me. So I hear this voice and he's like, "You, come here." And I'm like, "Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong place." And he goes, "No, come here, show me what you got." So he looks at my portfolio and he says, "You want to be in a movie tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Sure." And that was all the marbles. And then I thought, well, I'll just, keep doing this. And then I answered the ad in drama log for Slumber Party Massacre, not knowing if I could act or not. But there was a shower scene and I was willing to do nudity. And I, get chased by a maniac with an electric drill and I die horribly. I scream. And it was the first time I had ever done that, not realizing that this was going to be my way of life for the next 40 years.
Right.
The pattern. The only thing that changed was sooner or later I went from being a victim to being the villain, because some producers like Fred Olen Ray realized there were more interesting things you could do with me besides kill me. So I would do switcheroo things, like I would get possessed by demons, like in Spirits. I would be insane, like Haunting Fear. I would turn into a vampire, like Transylvania Twist. So I would start out the movie fairly normal or innocent or the victim, and then I would do a switch halfway through. And those were my favorite kind of movies, where I got to play both sides.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah. We interviewed Eileen Dietz some months ago. And she says something very similar. She loves playing the monster. She loves playing the demons. It's the villain roles that are so much more fun and usually have more meat. So I could totally see that. What a fun playground to be in.
Yeah, and it really helps if you've got a certain kind of makeup or gore or wounds. Like that. It helps you get more in character. Because face it, as an actor, I've never been chased by a maniac in real life. I've never been terrified and screaming and running in high heels and, things like that. So you just have to imagine what it's like. And I guess I must have a really good imagination because I was really natural at it. I never had acting classes. Like I said, I never aspired to be an actress. Later, I took some classes. But when I started out, I was just brand new at it. I had no idea what I was doing. And back then, in the early 80s, movies still played in theaters. Video hadn't been invented yet, not until the mid-80s. And so I was watching Slumber Party Massacre on the big screen at a movie house in Los Angeles. And I went, wow, you know, I'm not bad at this. I'm going to keep doing it. And I kept expecting somebody would come along and say, you're not an actress. Get out of here.
Oh.
Nobody ever did. So I just kept doing it because nobody chased me away.
Good. No, that's awesome. Yeah. If they would have chased you away, I would have felt so bad. And at the same time, we would miss out on your talent.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I must say my parents had a hard time dealing with the fact that I was no longer in the doctorate program at Scripps. And for the longest time, when people would ask, oh, how's she doing in college? And they'd go, fine, you know, not admitting to it. And I would try to show them my movies, but my parents did not like to see me die. And I certainly didn't want to show them me naked, which I was in a lot of movies in the 80s. So I would cut the movies, you know, it was all on VHS, and I'd cut a new version. And my mother at one point said, you know, this seems like kind of a short movie at 36 minutes. And I'm like, oh, that's a trend now, Mom. They're all short.
Oh, that's awesome. They don't know any better.
No. And then finally, in the late 80s, early 90s, Mob Boss was on television, which was a multi-million-dollar movie made by Fred Olen Ray. Eddie Deason was in it, and a lot of big-name actors, Morgan Fairchild and stuff like that. And it was on television on NBC, prime time, Friday and Saturday, 8 p.m., and everybody saw it. My parents saw it, and it's a very decent role. I play a very inept hit woman, but I look gorgeous in it, and I fire a lot of big guns. And my father was so proud of me. So when I visited him, we go out to a restaurant, and he says to the waitress, you may have seen my daughter on television. I'm like, Dad, stop it.
That's awesome. Finally, came around to support you. That's awesome.
Finally, they did. You know, they wish I had made more money at it and stuff. And I really never expected to be stuck in B movies.
Right.
And you know where that terminology comes from. You know, it's like, for those of you who don't know, I think it came from drive-in movies where there'd be a double feature.
Yeah.
And the main movie was the A movie, and the second movie was the B movie, or like the A side and the B side on records. So they call them B movies. And I thought I would just do a few of those. And, you know, because I worked on major films, like we said, you know, Body Double, Spinal Tap, Gun, Three Amigos. So I really am so surprised that I never graduated into the A-list movies as an actress. And I think part of it was I refused to do the casting couch. I was kind of a prim and proper girl, even though nudity didn't bother me. I just drew the line at the casting couch. So I think maybe that was why I didn't go further. But you know, I never expected, but I feel like destiny just had my name on it to be a B movie screen queen. And that was to be a big fish in a small pond. That was my fate.
That's cool that, you know, you're able to, you know, kind of stay away from that casting couch. So many horror stories get back to you nowadays, right? With that stuff.
Well, yes, and now finally, you know, all the birds come home to roost with the Me Too movement, and people are getting called out on this, and so hopefully that will all change for the younger, not just young women, but young men as well are prey to the casting couch. So hopefully things will get better. But I must say, because of the Me Too movement, there's never been a better time to be a woman in Hollywood. And this year, before COVID struck, I was slated to direct 3 movies. And largely, they all wanted a female director. And in all the movies, I was in it already as an actor. And they're like, how would you like to direct this too? Because they really wanted to show their support for women and to have more diversity and have female directors. So unfortunately, all three of them were postponed. I hope they'll get picked up again. One of them is a remake of Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama.
Oh, okay. Which you were in, or in the 80s.
As a young actress, I think it was around maybe 87, done by Full Moon. And one Friday night, Charlie Band called me and said, hey, Brink, I'm remaking Sorority Babes. And I'm like, so why are you telling me this? I died, in the movie. And he said, how would you like to direct it? And I'm like, yeah, sure, thank you.
That sounds awesome.
So it's basically a scene-for-scene remake of the original with new actors. And I would direct it. And there is some cameos for me, Linnea, and Michelle.
Cool.
I don't think it needs to be remade. I think the original Sorority Babes was perfect.
Right.
But I'm not going to talk myself out of a job.
Right. Brett was just asking, what it's like to be doing filmmaking during the pandemic. But you're not really able to work, are you? Are you able to get in front of the camera at all right now?
Well, when the year started out, I thought this year is going to be amazing. 2020 is going to be the most productive year of my life. I was slated to direct 3 movies, all of which I would be in as an actor, one of which I also wrote the script last year. I had 10 movie jobs lined up in addition to these 3 directing jobs, and I had about 5 conventions and film festivals lined up. I was going to be busy every month. So I managed to get 1 movie shot in early February, and I did 1 convention in Austin, Texas, called Classic Con. And then in mid-March, the pit hit the fan, everything stopped. And everything got postponed indefinitely. I was able to shoot 3 of those movies in July because the filmmakers were just really anxious to get them done. So 2 were in Texas and 1 was in North Carolina. And I had really good experiences on all of them. They were very, very safety conscious. Everyone did COVID tests. I took COVID tests. The whole crew got tested. They did temperature every day. Everyone wore masks. We just take our mask off when we were filming. And, minimizing no extras, like the crew would be the extras. Things like there was one movie, Strix. Abel Berry directed that. And I'm supposed to be being interviewed by the press because my daughter's been kidnapped. And the press were the producers, and some of the crew were playing the reporters. So I was very pleased. I was more afraid of flying on airplanes and being on airports and stuff like that. But it all worked out well. And I was also able to shoot 2 movies here in Los Angeles with Dustin Ferguson, in both of which I play a scientist. And so as a joke, my scientist name in the movie is Dr. Charlene Brinkman, which was my real name before I married Dave Stevens and changed my name to Brink. So that was pretty funny. So it was fun donning a lab coat again. In Beast Beneath, that's a big monster type movie, the tentacles and things that comes out of the ground after an earthquake. And the other one was called Arachnado. I play a military officer, and it's a big spider movie. So when Dustin asked me if I wanted to be in this, I said, I don't have to have any real spiders on me, do I? And he's like, oh, Lord, no, I'm afraid of spiders. And I'm like, I'm terrified of spiders. I don't want them crawling on me, so I'll only do it if I don't have to act with spiders.
Oh, man. A couple of weeks ago, for my birthday, my girlfriend and I, we traveled to, speaking of spiders, we traveled to southern Colorado for the tarantula migration.
Oh, really? You put yourself there willingly?
Yeah. So it turns out we got there at the wrong time of the day, where they're the most inactive, and we only saw one. It was cute, just the size of your palm.
Wow. I went to Tahiti one time, and this car was like swerving, and it pulled over to the side of the road. And I see the people, and they're all like looking through the front windshield up at something. And there's a spider. I swear it was the size of a baseball glove, was on their roof, you know, towards the windshield. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm leaving Tahiti right now. I don't want to go to the Amazon jungle. You know, I'm real happy being in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh man, those things can get so big. There's a bird eating spider that is, I think that's the largest spider in the world. I can't remember if it's from Australia or if it's from South America, but man, yeah, I don't blame you. Spiders can be really creepy. The things that creep me out are centipedes.
Oh, really? They have a lot of legs. Yeah. That's my problem with spiders. They've got too many legs and they move funny. And they just, I like other insects, though. I had a praying mantis on my rose bush, and she was beautiful, big and green. And then one day I came home, and she's in the act of mating with a smaller, browner praying mantis. So I stood there and watched because I knew what was going to happen. And sure enough, at some point, just like something goes off in her head, and she's like, brains, and she turns and cuts his head off. So the young hatch out and they feed off their father's body. And so there's this little tiny praying mantis. And I'm like, hi, I knew your mother. I also knew your father briefly, but we won't talk about that.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, he tasted good.
I know.
Oh man, yeah. When when the COVID stuff started coming out too, I was really. They were talking about the murder hornets.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then I found a video of a large praying mantis just devouring a murder hornet, and it's just like, well, that's at least one problem solved. Just praying mantises out into the wild.
When I had this praying mantis outside, I Googled, and I looked at YouTube and stuff, and there's a video of a praying mantis eating a hummingbird. I mean, these things can get vicious. Yeah.
I've got another one for you too. I found a video of one eating a lizard.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, I'll send that to you. We're friends on Facebook, so I'll send that to you. Jeannie just posted. It is fun when multiple scream queens get together for a film like Nightmare Sisters and Sorority Babes. Oh, wow.
Now, we just did a Zoom with me, Linnea Quigley, and Michelle Bauer, the 3 original Scream Queens, and Jason Paul Cullum. And this became a special feature on the re-release of Screaming in High Heels, which is a wonderful documentary. If you guys haven't seen that, Screaming in High Heels, just re-released, lots of special stuff on it. So I'm very proud of that documentary. It kind of documents the whole Scream Queen era with interviews with not only the women, but some of the male filmmakers that hired us.
Yeah. Oh, man. That's pretty cool. I think I did see a couple trailers for the documentary, with all 3 of you in there that you were mentioning. Yeah. So I think it's on Amazon right now. So if anybody wants to, definitely go check that out.
I do a lot of documentaries. I get interviewed a lot because I have kind of a scholarly perspective. So I did one for the Emmanuel film series. And I was in Emmanuel 4. And a German company is putting out the first 4 Emmanuels, which are kind of like the most real ones. There were lots of other spinoffs. And I had only worked 2 days on it. And I never read the entire script. They only gave me, my part. I worked with Sylvia Kristal. But I got interviewed for the documentary, and I had done a lot of research on the series itself. And so I really become kind of a spokesperson in the documentary. I was really happy with that. I'm all through it. And that's in the 4-disc set of the Emmanuel movies. Then I also did one recently called Skin, A History of Nudity in the Movies. And they interviewed me for an hour and a half, and I'm hardly in it at all. They just do a couple of sound bites with me. But what it is a bunch of scholarly middle-aged men discussing eroticism. So, But
there's something... Yes, something that middle-aged men probably don't know that much about.
Yeah, exactly. But they do show some clips, and they do put it in perspective, like the first nudity that was in movies, and the pre-code standards, and the rating system, and the way things are now, and how we went through a phase. When I got into acting in the 80s, there were certain things that were required in these low-budget movies. One was a lurid box cover. And like Slave Girls from Beyond Infinity, it's this monster carrying off a naked woman. The other thing was that all the actresses had to agree to be naked or to show their breasts. So in Slumber Party Massacre, Sorority Babes, Nightmare Sisters, there's a lot of female nudity because that was what sold stuff. Our target was college-age males. And it was kind of frivolous stuff. I don't think any of the filmmakers expected that these movies would live on.
Yeah.
That it become a cult thing and people would still watch them. Not long ago, I was flown to Tucson, Arizona. They were showing Sorority Babes. And the entire theater was filled. It held probably 400 people. I got on and I introduced the movie and I did a Q&A on stage afterward. And I have to say that there was probably nobody in that theater who had been born yet when this movie was made. It was a very young college crowd. But they asked all the right questions. They laughed in all the right places. And I thought, wow, it's really wonderful that a movie that's 40, 35 years old, could hold up and still appeal to a whole new generation.
Yeah, I think that's something to be said about the modern fan base, but also the internet too. People, especially right now, you have all these captive audiences at home, and they're looking for new content, and they're going back and finding all these wonderful treasures. It's like going through the album bin at your local record store. It's like, oh, I don't know what this is, but the artwork looks great. Let's buy it. Of course, that's how I would, look for albums, back then, when I was like 11, it's like, oh, this is good album artwork. Let's give it a listen. You have no idea what you're in for. And it's great. I love that sensation of discovery, as a fan. Even when you turn out, you find that you don't like it. Sometimes it can also be the company you keep. You watch it with another friend. Suddenly it's a whole new film, because you've got their shared perspective too, and they're laughing, they're having a good time. You can't help but have a good time too.
Yes, some movies are best watched with an audience. And like you just pointed out, the vinyl was a big resurgence. My young niece, when she was about 20, she said, do you have any record albums? And I'm like, yeah, why? And she said, well, we have a record player and a whole group of us sit around it and we listen to records. And I'm like, oh, that's so cute. That's what we used to do.
Right. That's fantastic. I was reading an article a couple of weeks ago where like the number one group that reads today physical books are a lot of people in the city in their 20s, especially if they're traveling around using public transportation. They'll walk in and take up a physical book. And then the next group I think was older people, using iPads and stuff.
Right.
So it's interesting how technology informs one group, and then for the other, they're still that instinct to go to something a little bit more texture and dexterity.
I love physical books. I've never owned a Kindle, but I got recently, a few years ago, I got into recording audiobooks. And I got in right at the beginning when there were very few. It was called books on tape back then. And it was for people that were blind. And audiobooks were not a phenomenon when I got started. And the way I got into it, I had done a movie for a producer called Glenn Porzig. And he had a bunch of scripts of movies that he had never made. So he decided to turn his scripts into novels. And he had turned one called Darkness Unbound into a novel, and it sold. And then he knew about the audiobook phenomenon that was starting. So he called me up and he said, would you like to read my novel as an audiobook? And I said, well, I have no idea how to do that. Although I was doing a lot of voiceover work, but I would go into someone else's studio to do the voiceover work. I've dubbed a lot of actresses in movies and stuff, and they would do all the engineering. So I had to teach myself how to do it. And the very first audiobook I did, we submitted it to Audible and they rejected it. And I was horrified because I'd spent a month and a half recording this thing. So it turned out it was an issue of just cleaning up the sound. That's all I had to do was run it through, and I didn't know all the, because I'd never taken a class on how to do this. So I quickly learned and taught myself. And I've done 4 or 5 books in Glenn's series. They're all called Darkness Unbound something. And each one, it's about a detective who deals with psychic and supernatural cases. And so each book is a different supernatural case that he's dealing with. They're fascinating. And then I recently did another one called Spawn of Lilith for Dana Fredsky. Dana is the #1 best-selling horror author on Kindle. So I was, I felt like I made the big time when she asked me to record her book. And I'm now working on the 2nd book in the trilogy called Blood Ink. And that's also a supernatural thriller. And then she'll have a 3rd book in the trilogy that I'll also record for her. So it's fun. I like it. I ended up building a studio upstairs in my 2nd bedroom, my office. And so I just go into my little sound booth and I can record there. And I also rent myself out for doing other people's voiceover work. Like I did an animated show from Australia. I did a narrator role for a Canadian movie. I did some dubbing on a movie from the UK. So from my bedroom in Los Angeles, I've worked all over the world, or at least my voice has.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Anthony just commented, I found this very encouraging. I love audiobooks. I have Asperger's. They help me understand what is going on when I read the book. When I read a book, I lose interest. So he finds them pretty helpful.
Yeah. And as an actor, it's so much fun because I get to play all the characters.
Yeah.
And, there was one of the Darkness Unbound books. There's an old Italian priest who does an exorcism in Latin. So I gave the Latin exorcism to my friend's brother, who used to be an altar boy. So he recorded the phonetic pronunciation of the Latin. And I did this exorcism in Latin in the voice of an old man, an Italian man with an accent.
Oh my God.
I'll watch tutorials on YouTube, like how to do a Scottish accent or how to do an Australian accent. And I really, school myself in these. And so it's really fun because I get to play men, women, old people, young people, all these different accents. It's a dream for an actor to do an audiobook.
Yeah. Oh man, that sounds awesome. So you're able to just jump in from character to character.
Yeah, it is. I can go back and forth. I can have an argument with myself as 2 different characters, and I can switch back and forth just like that. That so fast.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, my audiobooks are on Audible and iTunes. So hopefully some of you guys will check those out.
Yeah, everybody watching, go check those out. Not now.
Yeah,
yeah, man, that's awesome. Brink, we're running. Time's starting to wind down, but I'd love to talk to you a little bit about your directing and producing, because I mean you wear so many hats. But what was your first film? I know you had a short that you did, Personal Demons. Is that right?
Yes, that came about. I have an old friend named Joe Castro, whom I met when he was probably 15 years old. He won a contest in Monsterland magazine to come to Hollywood and meet Evola. And I was Evola, the mascot for Monsterland. So he won. he and his mother came out and we did a photo shoot together. I was in costume and stuff. And I said, what do you want to do when you grow up? And he said, I want to be a special effects artist in Hollywood. Sure enough, as soon as he was of age, he came back out and we actually ran into each other on a couple of my films. And Teenage Exorcist, he did some of the effects. And I'm like, Joe, you're here. That's so cool. He got, excuse me, he got into producing. And he had done a series called Terror Tunes. I was in, I think, Terror Tunes 2. I play a witch in it.
Okay.
And I might be in Terror Tunes 3. Yeah, I'm in Terror Tunes 3 also. So he was getting to do Terror Tunes 4. And it's usually 3 30-minute vignettes with a wraparound. So he accepting submissions for any of these 30-minute vignettes. So I wrote up a proposal called Personal Demons about an actress who has substance abuse problems. And when she gets out of rehab, the only work she can get is on a low budget horror movie. And she's required to, in the script, read this demonic incantation. And she accidentally summons a real demon, which nobody else can see but her. So it's her personal demon, and it's trying to get her back into substance abuse. So she has to be very strong and fight this unseen demon that nobody else is aware of while she's making this movie. So it was fun. And Joe said, I really like your paragraph. Give me a 1-page. So I did. And he said, I love the 1-page. Can you write me a 30-page script? So I did. And I submitted it. And he calls me and he says, I want to talk to you. And I'm like, uh-oh, what did I do? So we have a meeting and he's got my script in his hand and he's like, I love this and I want to stay true to your vision. So would you like to direct this yourself? And I said, well, no, I wrote the lead part for me. He says, that's fine. You can act it and direct it as well. So he gave me my first directorial opportunity. I'm not that I hadn't tried earlier to direct, but everything just fell through for one reason or another. So I'm really thankful to Joe for doing that for me. And it was fun. I found out I was really good at directing after I've been in like 211 movies by now, I think. And you pick stuff up. I've been doing this for 40 years. And I was a really good director. I immediately called in Debbie Rochon and Linnea Quigley and worked with them on my first day of shooting. And the cameraman was so sweet. He said, you're the calmest director I've ever worked with, because he was used to screamers and shouters,
Right. Oh, so, I can only imagine. That's awesome. Yeah, you don't seem to stop, taking new chances and trying new things. That's fantastic.
Well, a lot of people want to see Personal Demons. It made the circuit on film festivals, but there's an Indiegogo campaign right now to get finishing funds so we can put out Terror Tunes 4. So if anybody looks at my Facebook pages and stuff or look at Indiegogo for Terror Tunes 4, we welcome all contributions to finally get this thing out so people can see it.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome. Man. Ooh, and hopefully after COVID too, you'll be able to get back to directing more films and finishing some of those projects.
I hope so. I was the script I wrote last year is called Tears of a Clown, and Grant Austin Waldman approached me with this project. He had been the director of Teenage Exorcist, which I think was 1991. And he had produced a number of Fred Olen Reyes movies as well, like Bad Girls from Mars and Mob Boss and Haunted Fear. So he had retired to Florida, but wanted to make more movies. He wasn't quite ready to retire yet. Yeah. So he had a 52-page script that someone else had written. And he said, here, turn this into a full-length script, 110 pages. Write a part for yourself and write a part for Eddie Deason. So I did, and it's a kind of a comedy spoof on It, where it's a clown, but it's funny. And we were going to shoot it in Cocoa Beach, Florida, because Grant was there, and he could get the Cocoa Beach Pier, hotel, restaurants. He could get a lot of amenities. So I flew there twice to Cocoa Beach, once with my cameraman, Chuck Serino, to do location scouting. And we're walking all over the pier, going like this. and I'm saying, well, if you set the camera here, that tree blocks out that billboard, and things like that, where it was really fun. We paced off the entire movie, page by page. And
Nice.
then COVID hit. We were going to shoot it in March, and COVID happened. So I sure hope we can get back. There's a couple of really large crowd scenes, like a clown contest on the pier that would have 100 extras. So it's safe to do it right now, but hopefully sometime next year.
Yeah. Well, man, I hope we can get you back to working and doing, those amazing things. I think our time is pretty much up. And Brinke, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. And
it went so fast. I can't believe that was an hour. And I want to thank everybody that wrote in too. You guys are really special. Thank you for doing that.
Yes. Thanks, guys, for everybody out there that was watching. This will be available to see on Facebook and YouTube. And Brinke, thank you so much. Thanks for being such an amazing, talented person. I'd love to have you back on, because I think you've got so many more stories to share.
Thank you. And if we can have the convention in Denver in September of next year, I hope a lot of you guys can come out and enjoy Denver and enjoy the show there.
Yes. Thank you so much. For everybody out there, I'm Dan Crosier, host of COFOH Live Undead with Brinke Stevens, the amazing Brinke Stevens.
Thank you, Daniel.
And I almost forgot my sponsors, Sumner Twins Talent, and my producers, Stefan Santa Cruz and Amanda Armstrong, wherever you guys are. And to everybody who commented in, thank you so much. And everybody out on the web, have a great night. Be safe.
Yep. Stay healthy, everyone.